is ready. Welcome to the Aalto-University Representative Council meeting 6 out of 2018. Moving on to item 2, recording members of the council who are unavailable, disqualified, ineligible, resigned, or who are present. And as you know, be audible, state your names. Will be late. Were there any names not mentioned? No, we have 40 members of the Representative Council present. Deemed that we have 40 members of the Representative Council present. Do we have any other people here who want the right of residence or to speak? Of course, given to the interpreters, to the ops people, and and don't seem like we have people here. Also, to the board and the Secretary General will be given the right of residence and speak. Anybody else? No? Closing item 2, moving on to item 3, recording lawfulness and quorum of the meeting. Yes, as everybody remembers, you send the invitation to the meeting 1 week prior. With the agenda, we had some technical problems, but this has been done. Seems that we had too many recipients or too many attachments. But the email just went through the filter, but it never showed up. So we decided that I placed it on my personal website on the Aalto server. That worked pretty nicely. So we can say that we have sent the invitation to the meeting in advance, and everybody has had the chance to receive the information that the meeting will be taking place at this time. Another problem was that in the meeting invitation says that we were in E-hall, we're in A2. We have lawfulness and quorum. Closing item 3, moving on to item 4, summonizing to scrutinize of the minutes and 2 counters of votes. So choosing 2 for both, and people will be acting in interjections to one another as each other backups. President Henri Miettinen for scrutinizers of the minutes. 3 names. Presenting Henri Heilala. Are you present and available? Yes, 2 names. Two names. We don't have any closed ballot votes, so shouldn't be a big job. Okay, 1 more name. Okay, we have all 4. And we'll check that scrutinizers of the minutes will be present for the entirety of the meeting. You will not be leaving mid-meeting. Okay? Good. Secretary General has the names. So choosing as scrutinizers of the minutes, the people mentioned, and counters of the votes, the 2 names mentioned. Decided. Closing item 4, moving on to item 5, confirming the agenda. The agenda has been sent, and it will be the template for the meeting. No proposals for change, deciding that the agenda has been confirmed. Closing item 5, moving on to item 6, announcements. I would start by announcing that the radio is up and running. The radio diodi is up and running. Any other announcements? No? Okay. Closing item 6, moving on to item 7. Latest news from the central office. Aalto presenting. Secretary General has my presentation. Hurrah. Nice to see you all again. Last time I was very taken with lots of the good questions I received, and I will try to do the same thing. So, start with the new staff. We'll have Housing Secretary, Peppi Reinikka, and 3 excellent trainees. First, we have Märt Vesinorm as the Organizational Development trainee. Märt over there, applause to Märt. And then we have Sanni Laiho for Student Wellbeing Development and Communications. We'll have Riikka Koskela for Communications. All 3 will start after Vappu, and Riikka will be starting at the start of June. 3-month traineeship. And some nice news from the service sector. We have the Domo sector, which has been sold to outsiders. Domo is AYY's housing and apartment search system. It was made 2-3 years ago that it was set up, and now we have the Hämäläisten ylioppilassäätiön LOAS, which is Lappeenranta apartment system for students, have decided to implement Domo. This is very good because they will pay us licensing fees, and they will be also pay for developing the system. As you see, the Hämäläiset have taken the system. You can check, it looks pretty much the same as ours. Lappeenranta is still doing the last bit tweaking to actually get it up and running in the near weeks. In terms of real estate and the buildings, we have Jamaran Taival 5C has received its new tenant. This is to be done with JMT 357 renovations, and it's 1 milestone done because 5C received new tenants mid last month. In advocacy, we have the Korkeakouluvisio project. Well done. This is a project by the Ministry of Teaching and Culture, of Education and Culture. And we have the roadmap that's been done last year to implement the vision the ministry has. Basically, changes in legislation, and changes in funding, changes in guidance of university teaching and development of governing. We've kept this vision up and about with the university, with SYL, and also, and a bonus, we met with Teknologiateollisuus and Rakennusteollisuus. We decided with them and discussed with them on the vision. Especially what we've done is that student feedback has been on the table. The discussions have continued to be so that these funding indicators should be struck down now that since universities are funded where the model where we have 3% is deemed by student feedback. And if we want to cut down on indicators, and we've kept it out on the table that the level of teaching should be actually visible there in the funding model. One other things that we focused is that we've brought this idea that what if universities would be funded not by degrees but by credits that have been completed. Currently you receive funding by graduating people with degrees. We've presented the idea, what if we move to study credits? And it could actually help us in a sense that students of other universities could complete their studies. in our university and we'd get funding, and vice versa. If we go to Helsinki University, it would benefit them. Would this be working inside Aalto between schools? This is not to do with that, it's university level funding. On advocacy, we have the China cooperation. In the international sector, we've done lots of work. The China cooperation is something that we've done with Tsinghua University and their student union. Is that our cooperation consists of 1 year after another. We send somebody to Peking, to Tsinghua, and on the every second year they have a delegation of their students coming to our university. This year we have a delegation going to Tsinghua after Vappu, and then in July they'll have a delegation coming to Finland. We're also going to Brussels because the European parliamentary elections are up and coming. We'll actually increase our knowledge of Europe and give some data for the Chinese as well. On the advocacy, we also have an online course on influencing of studies. Trying to organize a course, one evening of teaching on student advocacy, and I hope would it be really nice that it would be just more than just one evening, and our student representatives could get knowledge and continue their studies throughout the year. So that's why we started doing an online course, student study advocacy, and we also received a person called Minna Mäkitalo, and now that we have new people, we get new ideas, and Minna had this amazing idea that let's do this as an online course, and she drafted a funding petition, and we are receiving 15,000 in university funding to implement this online course. So a small applause from that one. Minna is not here, but hopefully Minna can hear this through the stream. And we also have an interesting opportunity that if this pans out well with student representatives and their training, and we could maybe broaden this to our association trainings if this goes well. And since we have associations that need more information in the spring on association activities, it would be better that we could answer these needs in the spring or in the future. On the community side, we have the community framework project. Let's find out the resources for this project and fulfilling it, and we'll make a decision that we'll complete a recruitment. The idea is that we could outsource this and buy this as a service, buy some consulting services, but we decided that a recruitment process is better for us. And this recruitment is going open and out and about soon for a call for applications. Then you might have noticed, and you feel it in your hearts, that Vappu is almost here. It can see in our events sector that now I've been here up in front several times, like no events, preparing. Now the time for preparing is past. Let's go full blast, and I'll have all of these events. You can see quite a plethora of events that are happening. Then we also have some non-traditional events. I want to focus. We have the Taikous party organized by Mosaic and ESN Aalto Best, and music will coming from Entropy. So if you're 27th, if you're feeling like dancing, there is a party at Smökin. We have the junk bike collection. Better than ever. The focus point is that we are doing some tasks for university. Then we have the A games with the schools taking each other's measure in different kinds of ball games, and Ultimate, a new amazing event to actually include some sports into Vappu. And then when the board is coming back from China and we've gone with Vappu, we'll have the 8th year annual ball for AYYE. Then we have the Year of Arts project. We have the work group set up. You can see the names up on the board, and 2 of them are there on the picture. Then we have the Night of Otaniemi, which will be kind of the piece de résistance of the Year of Arts. Some nice news on that the university will be supplying us with facilities. The university is very excited for this event. And we have determined the date. It's on the 6th of November. Jot it down on your calendars quickly. So I go about kind of a city cross artistic festival. The idea is to have small events here and there, starting from a student creation point of view. Then we have for the art year of arts is the Värä building and the wall art competition on the 15th of June. Of May, sorry. Of May we'll have the conclusion, and then we'll meet with the designer, and in the fall we should all be able to gaze at the piece of art on the Värä wall then. The idea is that it should be there for like 5 to 7 years, so it's not kind of a permanent thing, but we can promise 5 to 7 years and we'll see if we can get something new there. Why is it in a bad position like this? I don't know. Can you answer? Why is the Värä wall mural art piece of art in a bad place? Situated in a bad place. And where is it? Where is it situated at? Am I doing this correctly? So, it will be residing so that it can be seen when you're standing at Värä and looking at the other. So it's like 50 meters wide, and it will be very visible if you look at out of any window of Värä. So it's kind of subjective. Is it a good place or a bad place or a place? But if you have a piece of art that can be seen from every window in Värä and it's done by a student, it's pretty central. It's pretty a good spot. And more on the Year of Arts. Should increase the art collection, started last year, and we'll continue it this year as well. More pieces of art for the collection. Then we also have the summer afters at Fat Lizard. We've discussed with them the concept, and we'll also have a movie week with Kino Tapiola. That's been discussed with them for the fall. So these kinds of projects are up and coming. Any questions? Seems like no. If no comments, I will close item 7 and move to decide. The proposal was that the Representative Council decide to place on record the news from the central office. Closing item 7, moving on to item 8, overview of the policy paper reform. If you want to request for the floor, please wave your hand so we can move the microphones to you, so we can actually get the questions onto the stream in other languages than English as well. Thank you. And on the overview of the policy paper reform, this time it is basically the presentation of the project plan, and all projects start with planning. So during April, we've planned this project plan and also planned what groups will be tied in and what will be developed and what will be renewed electronically, physically, and thought of the structure of the policy papers and what kinds of themes, what kind of subheadings will we have there. And this work is partially complete, but should be ready by BAP. Then in May we should have the policy reworks, more slides on this. So first part about policy mining is that we'll do recycling. We'll do with our experts on our board. We'll see what's usable material, what will be recycled to the new policy paper and what will be left out, either because it's outdated or if it's something that doesn't really belong in a policy paper. Then we'll have workshops. We should mine for new openings from your heads and the heads of the board and the minds of all the other people. So kind of like a post-it workshop coming up for all three committees and the board. Then we'll have meetings. We'll have a list of meetings that we will attend physically to go and ask questions and try to mine some data from there on what policies should AYYE make on what should the policies be. This is kind of a pretty free form. It has to do with the group of volunteers on how much time do they want to spend on this one. We've done kind of a framework. They want to follow the framework, or it might be a 5-minute item in their meeting that they asked, like, do you have any ideas, and then move onwards if you have really important stuff. So we'll try to place more weight on this one. Then, when that's complete, we will start the electronic tying in aimed towards our member base. So all the people that we can't do any physical discussion-based mining, we can do it in an electronic format. Should be opening right after Vappu. Let's do a survey, do it well, in order to maximize its efficiency. Should be open 2.5 months, so you will have time to bring forth your ideas. Then we have the mining aims for the first draft, which will be worked at the office, so that kind of a collection of ideas will have all the ideas, their alternative policies, any ideas that people have had, like we could have a policy on this, make this kind of document. And on the color coding, you can see that there's color coding, that purple is office work and grey is work that ties in parties outside of the office. Then, when we have the draft, it's ready, we'll give it to the representative council groups. You also have a chance to comment. When you read on the draft, you read on the ideas that others have presented. If you have new ideas emerging from those, you have the option of presenting those ideas until the end of July. Then, when all this material has been garnered, we have it. At the office, we'll take a workforce evening and really chew into it with our experts and specialists. And when we are actually doing the preparatory work for the first draft, it doesn't actually reflect any single entity's opinions, it's just a collection of opinions. And also in August we'll be doing this decision-making process here, thing with the board, with our experts on what do we think is the AYYE policy on this item. Then we would have our first board proposal ready in September. As in Korkeakouluvisio, during the spring, you see that in September we'll send the board's proposal for comments to the committees, and through that, of course, to the representative council groups. And that'll be worked in committees and make a second version at the office. Check out the wishes of the committees and what do we do in regards to that. After we'll have a short gap, the translator will be doing her job. If you have any things that you wish to change, if you want to to do that, you can do it during the gap, and then we have the decision making in October. Now you can see the whole picture. I would like to reiterate the most important chances of advocacy. So it's very important that you're here still at the start when we're making the mining process. We need all the ideas in an early stage, or as an early stage as possible. We can take them into the preparatory work. And this summer pool between June and July is more on. It's better that you have something rather than nothing. We give the opportunity to give comments during the summer, but nothing is happening at the office really that much, and of course in the representative council groups that much. So I hope that you will be active here during May in the committee meetings, bring forth the ideas. Let's have workshops. And another important point is that when we have the first board proposal, that you'll have time in September to dig into that, and then in the committees we'll be developing it further. Any questions? Hello from Luova. Like you actually said, that I was pondering on how actively will the representative council members be pondering on these issues during the summer, and like you said, that it's kind of a point where you can make a stand, but it's regrettable that it's during the summer, but well, everything has to be held at some time. But you kind of actually answered my question there. Just wanted to state things. Any other questions? Seemingly not. Hurrah. Thank you for this. Let's continue on this item in the future. So, closing discussions. And moving to decide. The proposal was that the representative council decide to place on record the overview on the policy paper reform. Decided. Closing item 8. Moving on to item 9.
And that is the status update on the Student Center project. Okay. You see that we're standing here, blocking the slideshow. Okay. Hello, everyone. We'll go through the news from the Student Center. Current issues is that we're still working on these two areas, the real estate and community side. For real estate, it is 1+1 working group meetings, and we're working on the new facility program according to the needs of the different parties. And we try to find the different facilities that we could merge and find this kind of different solutions than what we had in the project plan that we made last year. And the zoning meeting for the chemistry block is in May, where we'll check the status on that. And for community side, we had this student center seminar. We had a very good amount of participants, representing council members, representatives from sections and special status associations. We had this professional facilitator and sort of 3 assisting facilitators. And at least I think it was very good event. Here, as kind of a background, what we wanted to do the seminar, what kind of answers we tried to find, is that in the vision of the student center, it would be like a meeting and hangout space where all Aalto members have reason to come to, we wanted to find ideas for this at the seminar from different parties. And here you can see the questions that we used. We had 6 different groups, where 2 always handled one question. And with these questions we tried to find out that what kind of services and facilities the center could have. So this feedback form, I think there are some people here who attended the seminar, and I hope that if you were there, you'd fill in the feedback form. I previously said the deadline was today until 4 p.m, but it's still open today until midnight. So please fill that out. You can just put it shortly, it's a very short survey. So please, because we really appreciate your feedback, so we can develop our seminars in the future and how to involve our members into this project. Have any comments, for example, with your groups, that you had anything to say about the seminar that hasn't yet been entered into the feedback form? So the general notion, story, I came to the seminar. I had an open mind when I came there, but I didn't know what kind of vision we should work on, because I had a vision on paper. There's concrete things and strategy and vision. And we tried to look for the answer to the question that why should everyone come there? But when they started the event, everyone was just so creative, and at the end we all stood in a circle and gave a marker. When you give the marker, you give your opinion. And there was an awkward moment that no one says anything, but there are many people who, like at least 20 people, who said that this is really cool, and people like think like concrete things that we have, like a slide and a rooftop terrace and like 1,000 ideas. And we'll have different reasons to come there. There's not a single answer to the question. To the collective idea or just one idea. So we're here to work, or some people may come here because the toilet is clogged and they have to take a shit bath, yeah. But we can just one single idea. You can think that if you have like a free hour between lectures, then you think that, yeah, you can go there. There's like a vision work inside our heads and not on paper. It's kind of like a dreaming that we have this kind of a common objective that we want to achieve. I believe that if you can make everyone understand that, we can achieve the objective more easily. And as we talked at the end of the seminar, the Opiskelijohtajat.fi, we did have this like a general idea that what this whole thing is about. But also put all the ideas that we had discussed in the seminar could be put up. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, I couldn't make it myself to the seminar. I had APRO at the same time, I was there. But 2 days before, we go with a smaller group, our representation group. We kind of ask around, give people coffee and ask our members that what do they think about the student center and what it should include. There's kind of a strong need for a facility where, well, currently we're missing like a facility where people from different schools could hang out together. Because now our Aalto community isn't really working on the level that it could work in the future. Because now like the engineering students go to their guild and TF people go to their own building and people are spread out. And we have to have a shared common place where we can all go to. And people really asked, they were really interested in, want to know that when this building would be finished. And that's why I hope that now the board and when the government is trying to get our social healthcare reform finished, maybe we could have kind of a facilities program by autumn. It's kind of a similar needs that cropped up also in the seminar. There are a lot of ideas about this kind of a Aalto Guild House to Absinthe House. So it's kind of nice to put these ideas up so other people who weren't there could also see them. But we're working on the results, and based on them, we're planning to make this kind of follow-up survey. And Emma is processing the answer from the survey, and we're now scoring our operating grants. I'm doing that, so I really don't have time for this now. We have scarce resources, and then we're going to China after Vappu. So do that, how we can keep in a schedule. And there are the follow-up survey, based on the results for different target groups. Talk more about it on the next slide. Yes, I'd like to say that about the general feedback from people who participated in the seminar. They said that they want to share this feeling that people who are interested in this could, for example, at the website, could get the idea that what this project is about, and be as excited and passionate as the people who attended the seminar. So working. So the feedback form, we also asked that, do you have any wishes when processing and publishing the results? That's a good channel. If you have any ideas, please send them through the feedback form. Even if you given feedback previously, please use it again. Yes, thank you for the excellent seminar. I think I should take the microphone. Thank you for the excellent seminar. It was very inspiring. It was a good atmosphere, good spirit. And I think that how to take these ideas forward, how to communicate them to the general public. Yes, I hope that you'll also be careful when those are kind of great ideas that we had, so that people don't start thinking that this is what the student center will be like. Because you have to have this kind of expectation management, because we can't, of course, we can't put everything there. But also we can have a survey that what elements you would like to have in the actual center. That would be good. But it's a very good seminar, so thank you. That's what I heard, these ideas. It'll be pretty good, but I'm interested in that. Has our funding situation changed? How are we going to fund these shared guild spaces, for example? Because previously people said that we even don't have money for the office spaces. So what about the fundings? As the funding situation hasn't changed, we've always had about enough money, but the question has been that are we getting what we want with the money? And in the seminar we wanted to survey all these kind of wild ideas. If there's kind of a crazy idea that would cost a lot, then it may be that from the idea we can get something else that can be implemented on a smaller level. So we want to get receive ideas that how to make the student center as a shared place for all students and answer our members' needs. As I do, we look for two things. It's very good that you also collected these kind of wild ideas. The brainstorming phase should be that not think about the money too much in that stage. I think it will also be important So we've got to find this kind of clear vision, that they are not just like a scattered, fragmented ideas, that are kind of a common thread. Like for example, it's kind of volunteer world or like well-being center, or what's like a big theme. Because student center is very vague, I think. And another thing that we'll see is that because this is made for students, it should have something cool. For example, a water slide from up to the bottom. This is not like a concrete idea, but some kind of a like thing that would make it ours and very cool, and not just like 4 walls. Because on the curved surface, it's not enough for me. Something cool. Talk about the sharing the ideas, results. So talked about this kind of domain opiskelijohtaja.fi. We could put there like a website. We get more information on the student center. We'll move forward with that during the spring when we have more resources. But then we got also kind of temporary solution. Could be like put it on inside. This kind of material database. For example, we have our documents for the property dispute, like a kind of similar to that. That the representing council members could see like the previous decisions and slideshows and things like that. So I thought about doing this. So it help you to keep up to date. Also do this survey inside our office. We opened the survey for our employees, for our staff, where they could tell about their own needs, about the office in the student center, and also have a separate survey for volunteers. We haven't opened that yet, but we're going to do that later. Yes, just comment to Seppälä's question. Well, we have kind of costs for all of our operations. Like for now, central office, we have like committed a few millions there. So that's already an expense when we say that we offer our services there and there are special volunteers at the office. So I think now we should start thinking, because of our strategy, we've said that we want to be the world's best place for students. Yes. And I think that this kind of a common shared Aalto living room, where you can be creative, I think kind of a mandatory if we want to implement this vision. But we can also say that let's just buy a helicopter if that's better for implementing the idea. We're talking about alternate costs that what idea we should implement to get the most value out of our money for our students. Because for example now central office doesn't provide that much value for our current regular members. And in this, when we had this questionnaire, I asked people that have you visited the central office? And many people said that they visited once, when they fetched the keys to the apartment. And I think that's very alarming, because it's like 2 million euros worth this building, but just a fraction of our members use it. So if you can have a meeting place for all members, it would be a good investment. As a follow-up question, see what are we going to sell the central office or what? Or can we liquidify this 2 million euros? That how can we utilize the money better that we have at the central office? Now I can say that we're having negotiations about the subject. We're running out of time on this item. Yes, this is the last slide. Kind of final points. We have 1+1 group meetings, and in the spring discuss with Hahtala that what to do with the project plan in the future, and what kind of facilities we actually want in the student center. We can put them on the Excel and on paper and see the new cost estimate. And about the for the spring's last meeting of the Representative Council, thought we could kind of present the results from our 1+1 working group's work. As you could see what we've done, and also about the results of the seminar could be presented there. There's no other comments, thank you. I'm gonna make it to the seminar myself, but yes, please take a seat. Thank you. Closing discussion, moving on to making the decision. Representative is a pleasure record to news on the Student Center, moving to item 10, presenting confirming the annual report and financial statement of Student Union for the year 2017. As I you are obstructed from attending the next item, not this one. Yes, good evening. We're at this point of the year where we go through the financial statement. And if you have been here previously in this situation, but see, I have a lot of material of this PowerPoint presentation. Where are the highlights? Then you have the auditor's comments and the numbers. I'll go through this and then we'll answer your questions after that. Those kind of main, most important figures is that for the entire group. When we merge this everything, our profit was 16.1 million euros. It's less than last year because in 2016 we sold some of our ownership from our Ida Alberg property, and we got 4 million euros from that. So without the Ida, we had actually more profit than previous year. Total expenses was the same, 50 million euros, and the result was 1.1 million euros. There, when we look at the result, quite smaller than in 2016. It's because we had the sale of the property in 2016, and the balance of the group has increased because we managed to finish the Jätkäsaari building. We have 149 million euros our balance for the group. Our liquidity, it's decreased a bit, it's 36%, it was 41 because it was exceptionally good. It's still good, the 36, if you look at similar operators such as us. Our debts have increased, it's 91 million euros at the moment. Last year we had to take a loan for the Jätkäsaari building and from Jämäränaival renovation, and also for the 10 million euros loan for purchasing the plots. And this annual report tells about the operations of the year. Jan Arpana, the previous chair of the board, wrote it, and the highlight from that. As someone said about the best student's life in the world, it's our objective. Last year we clarified our operations, invested in our services, initiated the brand work, but also the management of university, it was kind of overhauled, and 2017 was significant because of the centenary of Finland's independence. And our staff changed. One significant thing is that we recruited a services manager, so we managed to improve our services. So new recruitments, we have people who left, but we have now more employees than before. Some examples are our real estate manager, who has improved the enjoyability of our facilities, and also an AD, because if there's usually a non-military worker vacancy. We also opened recruitment for this manager of advocacy and communications, and they started their work already. We also see the result for that. And last year we had the European Council elections, as you know. And we're a community. We've had a lot of events, focus related to Vappu. The President of Finland also visited when we declared the Vappu frenzy, and then we have the Delegation Week 145 years anniversary. Of course, our advocacy and influencing, they're very important for us. And when we try to influence the university, we do it all the time by holding this cooperation meeting. Now we can do that at the new Dipoli. We also have close relations to Espoo City and the zoning committee. We also meet with them. The board also tried to influence the tuition fees as best as they could, and also the municipal elections in 2017 were visible in our operations. And services have been very much highlighted now, and our most important service is housing. And now you know that at Miestentie we will have our newest building, which will be finished at the end of the year. It's almost, it's kind of it looks very good when you come from Tapiola, when you see that the walls are up. We will have more than 130 new apartments there. And then we can start taking tenants in at the turn of the year. And we also had, last year we opened the new building at Jätkäsaari, the new property building. And then we also, it's very important to offer facilities for students. And about real estate, last year, this year, and the following years will be very important for our real estate sector. There's a lot going on. As I said, a lot of construction. We also had this big renovation. It's at Jämäräntaivalla, it's halfway there. Jämäräntaivalla 3 is. One of them is already completed, and then we also had to buy these plots from Senaatti, which affected our balance sheet and loans. And then we talk about our associations, the figures. Well, the profits income was 744,000 euros from events, not membership fees, kind of corporate cooperation and rents. And from membership fees we gained 850,000 euros. That's a bit less than the previous year, because we had less members, because a lot of people graduated. I hope they will continue as the same pace. And biggest expenses, big expenses were 2.6 million euros, 5% smaller than the previous year. Because TTE fund handed out less grants. They may fluctuate a lot, and it's also visible in the expenses. Usually our biggest expenses are our personnel expenses. We are a very personnel-focused community. It's visible in our expenses, but also office costs and grants also. I don't know what you're doing, but okay. And for our housing activities, we can say that our profits were 12.9 million euros. It increased by 4%. We got back, refunded some of our real estate taxes. We put it back into our real estate operations, which was great, because now we'll save in these taxes also every year. And the point was that because we're a non-profit organization in Espoo, then Espoo doesn't tax for the property tax, which would happen in Helsinki. This is not very consistent or logical, but this is how it goes. But also the Jätkäsaari property, we managed to finish that during the last quarter, so it's there. Expenses 11.5 million euros, increased by 2.5% because of Jätkäsaari. So talk about these debts, where they came from. And last we have the investment operations. Our market value for our investments was 42 million euros. 36 million euros is for our basic investment portfolio. which is kind of a half in shares, half in interests. And the profit for investment operations was 1.3 million euros. In 2016 it was a lot more because Idalberg in the property was sold. So when you look at that, in the third row, the result from our investment asset management, it was twice the amount as the previous year. And there's also very little going on in our real estate investments because we have not managed to sell the few properties that we have that we want to. And so the result for that was negative. And these are the things I wanted to present to you. But one thing I want to say is that when you look at the agenda, it says that the result was 146,000 euros. The one that we decide on is I was talking about the entire group. That's why it's different there in the agenda than here. It's different in our real estate company, then we have the parent company, and then we also present the entire group's finances. So proposal is that the Representing Council would confirm the financial statement and that this surplus will be moved to the surplus and deficit account, where also the previous surpluses are. People are very interested in numbers. You can look through the entire financial statement where you can see all the details. But at the end, I'd like to say as a conclusion that I hope that you also read the report from the auditors, the conclusion from the auditing, the summary. Kobeng is our auditor for the first time in several years. We changed it. Yes, if you can put it up there, yes. The auditing went well. And the only thing I want to really say is that there's kind of a very clean audit report. Really no comments. The summary page might be useful when you look at the structure of the group and also how the principles for drafting the statement and also the actual conclusions. They look at it in very much in detail. They've gone through all things during several months. But the summary is kind of a very short, kind of crude. But it says that all processes are in order, and then there's kind of checks, like surprise checks for different things. They all were in order. I think that's the main point here. Very exhaustive audit, and we'll continue with them also in 2018 with this firm. Here I'd be glad to answer your questions if you have any. If it is a question for you, for a general question, we'll look at the financial statement. But the thing that I'm interested in, the number, is that other expenses for association activities, 1.2 million euros, that where all that money goes. Because it's interesting to know. That's a good question. I previously already presented the budget monitoring for the associations. Regarding highlights, start for the personal expenses, then you have the rents for office spaces of the Kari 1. We pay like a internal rent in the group, and then also all the expenses for all events. But then we also have the event income is elsewhere. So for example, last year we have the Independence Day celebration, seeing kind of a spike in the expenses, but then it was kind of a zero-sum result. When you look at the expenses and income, there are also the grants and also the tuition, the fee, yearly fee for asyl. I think those are like the biggest expenses. But for the budget monitoring that we go through here every year, you can see it more in detail. If no other questions, do I have anything? Was this it? Closing discussion, moving on to making the decision. Now if someone is wondering, the next, when we are discharging liability, then everyone is obstructed from attending. If let me finish my sentence, all people or members of the board last year. Proposal was to represent council decide to confirm the annual report and financial statement of the student union for the year 2017, and that the surplus for the year 2017 will remain on the surplus and deficit account. This has been decided. Closing item 10, and now, please all members of the board, last year, Reija hasn't usually exited the room. And now ask Laura Seppäläinen as secretary and Visa Pollari as the chairperson of the meeting.
We'll remove ourselves from the room and we'll open item 11. Reinstating that I'm not removing myself from the room, even though I have responsibility. I will answer to any questions you have since I'm representing continuity here. So, item 11 is discharge from liability to the Board of 2017 and others responsible. Opening discussions. Seemingly no requests for the floor. So, closing discussions and we'll move to decide. According to the proposal, the Council decided to discharge the Board of 2017 and others responsible from liability. Decided. Can somebody ask them back in? Shall we have a meeting break at this point?
Vituks män?
Ei!
Any applause since we have the previous board with liability discharge granted. Okay, continue the meeting. Order. So, currently, if we go with my preparatory timetable, we should end at 8. And people have said that they need to rework on their group presentations. We have a 10-minute break upcoming, and continuing at 18:45 in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Putkatuskäyttö yleisin salainen kirjoituskeino on Saksan armeijaksi opetettu keino, miten mikroautonsa kirjoituskeino laittamassa päälle ovi auki.
Siellä on kirjoituskeino aika monta kertaa.
Mikä on kirjoituskeino. Se laittaa ovi auki seinää vasten, niin sieltä tulee 2,45 GHz taajuuden sähkömagneettisen säteen, joka tuntuu iholle muun muassa äärimmäisen kivuliaan.
Kunnon ruho. Mutta me tehtiin kompromissi ja päädyttiin ostamaan piironki, mihin saa vaatteita. Piironki, mihin saa vaatteita ja ompelutarvikkeita, eikä arkkupakastinta, mikä olisi ollut paljon parempi ratkaisu. So we'll take a few minutes. Se varaisin. Meeting break has ended. It's 6:52 in continuation of the meeting. Moving on to item 12. Opening item 12, preliminary discussion on the obligations of associations in the second list of AYY's association register and the gender division on associations, opening with Ferm's presentation. Thank you. We had discussions in the last meeting in the other emerging matters stage, and we've had all kinds of discussions in other places. So, to start with, I'll give some background. There should be a lot of repetition from many people, but in general I see it's important. We'll have the discussion based on that. Yeah, is the agenda. From AYY's part, we'll have the reference periods for 2015 to this moment, but 2015 is close enough. It should be relevant to you, and AYY also has some information on that. Thank you. Then do some legislation discussions and check out what is this AYY's deal and what options do we have of taking action. Have some votes. And also you've received the presentation in beforehand. So 2015. This item was up on the table then, and we did a resolution and deemed AYY to find out, have different kinds of discriminatory frameworks. What kind of support does AYY give these associations, and how does our regulation space take into account these actions? And then in 2015, we deemed at the office, or we knew that this means especially gendered activities. So we narrowed the answer down to answer that question, and we answered these questions. That we have associations who offer different kinds of facilities. We don't give any funding. We also have event visibility, and other kinds of cooperation is being done regarding or depending on the situation. What there was the outcome of the resolution, where this was up for debate. we were proposed that we'll do a more broad diversity survey, not to touch only associations, but we'll also ask the member base on what they feel that AYYE should do in the situation. We'll take a broader scope from the point of view of equality. That has been also presented at the university meeting. The survey had the results in 2016, and at the early 2017 we had the results. And the biggest points for those results is that what was AYYE was wished. It was here down, so keep an open discussion on the subject active, intervene in any problem situations that arise, campaign and inform on different themes of equality, organize varied events aimed towards varied groups, and by emphasizing equality in its actions. Based on this survey, it's also risen as one of the themes for AYYE, and this has been worked continuously. And something that's also good to say at this stage is that at the same time we had this student well-being was a big issue. We got some very troubling results from FSHS and All Well. So on a broader scope, student well-being came up as a subject. And these have been side by side up for development. Now we are continuing with the work. So, a light analysis that is perhaps a bit dated, if you read the modern news, is that lots of associations have changed their activities and their policies regarding gender requirements in their activities. Some legal background. We have some legislation that deem equality and basis of equality. It's natural that equality is an issue. Discrimination is not allowed in Finland. The gender discrimination is one, but also to ethnicity in other parts. And our equality survey, a point that arose was that AYYE should more than before put weight on issues of ethnic backgrounds and language diversity and the possibilities to take part in the activities of the associations and the student union. And there's also a big part on the Act on Equality between women and men that deems that if an actual point of the legislation deems you can have also specific actions aimed towards equality if they are aimed to develop the law. And so I'll say it like we have a group that bases their member base on diversity or by ethnicity to improve their position. That can be a factor. According to the Finnish constitution, we have different kinds of freedom of association and freedom of assembly. It says that anybody can have an association and decide on the rules based on Finnish law. So it's also said that it doesn't mean that anybody can join anything or organize anything, but you can actually start. So, as a short recap, if you have an association that does member choosing based on gender and it says it's in the regulation, it's not a discrimination from the point of view of legislation. You can take another point of view, it's that what kind of values do we want to promote? And that will take the discussion towards the point of view at like what's AYY's position and what kind of values AYYE wants to advance in their activities and in the surroundings and environs. And 2015 the board asked for some renditions on AYY's point of view on equality, on how is equality visible in our regulations, and it's found out in our administrative and financial regulations section that student union will follow the principle of good management, one of which is the equality principle. The equality principle that people must be dealt with on an equal basis regardless of various factors. We also have the association regulation. When we're talking about the association regulation, we have different kinds of stipulations to associations that can be a part of AYY's association register and receive AYY services. For example, especially in the first list, everything needs to be very open, transparent, and everybody needs to have a chance to join the associations. And most of our associations are in the first list in this sense that they are open to everyone. Also mentioned that this does not concern choirs or orchestras or certain stipulations that the student union decides. And then we also have the it says that we need to follow the law and good manners, and it's a very vague definition. It actually means that follow the law. And then the second list, associations develop our student activities. So basically any association can give the grounds that they have grounds on why to be in compliance with these regulations. We made them more strict in the sense last year that you need to have 7 members. It used to be 3 from Aalto, and that's not very strict still. We have associations on the second list which could be questionable, and that's how do they develop Aalto student life. Okay, and what are the services that Aalto AYY offers? There's a big list. The biggest ones are facilities and the operational grants, and then we also have student union participation or activity participation. Second list associations, the services are pretty much the same. That would be to an AYY member. The only difference is that the second list associations have the opportunity to rent club rooms from AYY if you have the grounds to do so. Also, what can be done is that I said that we don't have a mode of operation, that we would look at the association's rights and grounds to rent these spaces. As long as they are part of our registry, they are permanent rental contracts. Anyway, I also can do different kinds of cooperation with second list associations, which can be visibility or something appropriate for the situation. Form of cooperation that I can't really think of an example at this stage, but still. And what can AYY do about associations? We need to continue the discussion, and of course AYY will, continuing to do so, will continue on equality more broadly with you this year. Next year discussions will be kept on going as long as is needed. Then we can also think of stricter regulations to the association regulation, and through that we can guide the values to coincide with AYY's. And we can also think that what kinds of support do we offer through visibility, etc. So then we can actually get to the preliminary discussion. And here we have the framework, in the sense that the groups have been asked to prepare their opening statements. And then we have comments based on the speech, and the beef here is that if you have wrong information or disinformation, misinformation, you can correct if there are any misunderstandings, so you can give clarifications. Then we have a couple of votes, and then closing arguments. Okay, this is pretty clear for everyone. At least looks like. Let's continue. And I'll take this one. So we have the preliminary questions for the representative council groups. We sent them that we said that you should answer at least these questions. You can answer more broadly or more narrowly, but these were the ones that we wished the groups to answer. Thank you. So, on the internet, we're going to random.org. Do you have all the groups? 10 groups? Again. There we go. Luja is first. We'll have these. Request for the floor up front. Hello. Pusula from Luja. Our group speech is that Luja is nothing. Discrimination. Okay, AYYE should continue discussions with associations whom the issue concerns. The association regulation is in terms of equality very ambiguous, and it should be clarified. The fact that AYYE would intervene with member choosing is big enough that we shouldn't move into hasty decisions. We should start preparatory work this year, so the issue won't be forgotten. There should also be a transition period, which is long enough, for example, 1 year. If we make any changes. Thank you. Hello everyone, I'm Mart, I'm from Schisma, the chairperson, and our speech is so that, dear Representative Council, Schisma has had a broad discussion over the subject, and there have been a lot of opinions, but we have one combining mindset. Discrimination is not okay. That's why Schisma proposes that we should discuss with the associations known, and if the associations can show that they are working towards to end discriminations. For example, inside a year, AYYE should start to prevent sanctions and stipulations, starting from, for example, ending media visibility corporations, etc. Even if after this, the associations cannot prove that discrimination has ended, AYYE should end all cooperation with said associations. It would be good that the association regulations would have a concrete policy on what kinds of actions are deemed discriminatory, and these kinds of situations could be avoided in the future. Thank you. Dear Representative Council, here I am again. Last night Anton asked me to discuss and do this speech, and I had this intuition to say no. That would mean that would be escaping from responsibilities. Difficult discussions are something that need to be undertaken. It's nice that we've had on the Julko page. They've had this newsletter from this party. We have a strong committing to changes. It says that these difficult discussions that we've had, they actually lead to something. We've discussed this with Luova now several times, and the opinions on the actions have differed a bit in the nuances, but we actually gather a policy for Luova, which I'll try to say. First of all, it's important to discuss with all the parties and give some pressure for change, but also some trust. Luova would not take away the second list status from gendered associations. The second list does not stipulate. Also, the Associations Act gives associations the freedom to choose their members. And second list associations don't actually get that big benefits rather from AYYE members. But it also says that the association regulation says that a second list association can be given club rooms, warehouses, and also an opportunity to participate in the preliminary bookings of venues and facilities. The grounds are varied. And this is actually a big support for associations, and AYYE cannot extend this to all associations, and for this reason, and even though the scope of activities would be big, large or small, but gendered associations should not be given this kind of support. One of us opportunity is that we should make a stricter regulation for the association regulation, and we should remove all cooperation, for example, marketing and club rooms away from associations that discriminate on gender if the changes are not made within a set time period. Luova understands that change does not take place in one night, and these sanctions must be very, very well thought out, since they can have actually very bad consequences or very strong consequences. For example, if an association says that they will change their activities, for example, the summer of 2019, it gives a long enough transition period. But before the new students come in 2019. So, the rental agreements should be looked on from time to time, and they should be discharged or terminated if associations are being found discriminatory. But time should be given to change activities. Luova feels that 1 year is enough time to react and change. And I'd say that the news today give lots of credence the fact that we don't actually never have to go there. Hello again, Henri Miettinen from Vihreämpi Aalto. To start with, I'd like to say that from our groups, I'd like to thank all of us that we've taken equality as a big subject in this spring, after the winter, and that after today we will have one association less that discriminates on gender. It would be nice to continue. It shows that our community can evolve and develop. So thank you for everyone who's participated. Thank you to the board that we are undertaking this discussion here today. Anyway, the need for changing the association regulation has not disappeared. That we want to stipulate that and ensure that this kind of situation would not be possible in the future. We hope that the association regulation could be updated, that according to the association regulation you could not discriminate according to what it says on the legislation, even though that associations have the right to choose their members. It should be stipulated that you should still be beneficial to AYYE's purposes. AYYE should require associations to be equal. And visible discrimination is only one form of discrimination. We need more work in the future to actually get rid of the unseen discriminations. When we discussed a survey, maybe, that would be good. The timetable for this should be the same as when we have the community development that we are looking at later this year. Greener Aalto vision is based on equality, and we all have done a lot of work to make an equal Aalto. So let us continue our good work for the rest of the year, and let's make a good community for us all. Thank you. Helen from Gilderengas, dear represented council, I'll changing to our official language.
concerning the person, him or herself, or another. Striving for equality in the student community is important and should be done actively. Discrimination is against AYY's principles. According to its administrative and economic regulation, the student union's all activities shall comply with the principles of good administration referred to in the Constitution and the Administrative Procedure Act, which include, among other things, principle of equality. No one is placed in an unequal position based on a personal matter. Student culture changes with the students. AYY should not determine the culture from above, but it should only collaborate with the parties that comply its principles. At the moment, we are pleased with the news from today, and thus AYY should not change the rules pertaining to gender and equality more strictly in the association regulation. It is worth noticing that so far the student union hasn't demanded the associations to fix their mode of operations regarding parity inequality. Also, AYY has not agreed to only collaborate with associations that follow AYY's guidelines of equality. AYY should not collaborate with associations that do not comply with AYY's principles. The direction should be towards more equal community. We should also widen the scope of discussion of equality, for example, to the language question. AYY has 3 main languages, but Finnish is still the language that is used the most. Do the international students have the same opportunities to participate in AYY's activities and events as Finnish-speaking students? Every 5th member of AYY is an international student, but it doesn't correlate with active members of AYY. According to the survey on discrimination on 2016, with the issues relating to gender equality, also participation that relates to language and culture were visible, along with improving them. AYY should continue promoting equality in student activities, as it is also in the office program. So, in conclusion, we hope that the direction is towards more equal community. AYY should not collaborate with associations that do not comply with AYY's principles. With this speech, we would also like to thank Julkku for their decision published today. Yes.
Hello, from ProArto. First of all, it's great that the student union and the representative council have discussions on equality. We'd hope that we could talk more broadly about equality, not just gender equality. When association regulation should be updated, ProArto would wish that it would be updated entirely to be more equal, so that the association event and associations field would have any discrimination based on various factors, including ethnicity and various other factors. The association regulation update is good, but it doesn't solve all problems in equality. AYY should actively search for mechanisms and means to recognize any discrimination in the Aalto field and the associations field. In a community, it's important to find out whose voice is being heard and whose voice is not being heard. We also wish for collaborating discussions in the Aalto community. Even though the association regulation update could be done quickly, and we should have enough time for the community for discussion. The change can be more permanent if the decisions come from the community, not outside of it. And to conclude with, I would say that ProArte actually appreciates the steps taken towards a more equal community. Thank you.
Hello everyone, Jyri Tihanen from Aalto. If AYYE wants to act consistently, it should acknowledge the fact that there are already situations where gender discrimination is accepted, as was seen in the slides before. I refer to the male and female choirs, which belong to the first list. Also, AYYE seems to accept that the content events for second list associations can be gender divided. For example, as the activities of ladies of Aalto, even though you can join it regardless of your gender. Okay, Aalto agrees with these points. Male and female choirs have their place at AYYE. We also accept that the activities of certain associations may focus on just activities related to one gender. At Aalto, we support that AYYE would use its consideration when approving new associations if there are good grounds for taking members from just one gender and not banning an association that is seen as discriminatory. Yes, from Huhtinen from KEM, Derbyshire Council. KEM proposes the following. AYYE should continue and maintain this discussion with associations that do not fulfill our principles regarding equality. In addition, we should approach the matter by updating the association regulation. For the entries about equality in the regulations, they should be clear and unambiguous. When the new entries in the regulations come into effect, our group sees the rationale that the AYYE would discuss about further measures with the associations in question. If the equality work has not been improved. We also think that associations working within AYYE, that their equality work should be monitored through association notifications, for example. We have had the equality discussion, focusing on gender equality, but when updating the regulations for associations, we should also discuss this topic more broadly. For example, if in association activities, if some kind of other discrimination is taking place. The Council Group thinks that AYYE should not accept any sort of discrimination in their activities or in association in the first or second list. If an association in these lists or otherwise makes use of AYYE's services, discriminates people based on gender, for example, AYYE should have the right to stop supporting the association or stop their cooperation with the said association. We want to emphasize that before taking action, we should always try to resolve problems through active discussion, and associations should have the opportunity to give their own view regarding their operations. Cruz from Volte thinks that equality is a very important topic and it should be promoted within our community. These are also important values for AYYE, and in the office program for this year, the promotion of equality is one entry. We think that AYYE associations supported by AYYE should also act according to AYYE's values, and the student union should have ways to do something if associations are against these values. We would encourage AYYE to have some kind of rules for these kind of situations. We should start to work regarding this immediately, because there's a lot of discussion going on the subject within our community. But we also know that the changes take time, And to see the effects, they give them more time. And that's why I think it's important that in a situation like this, we could have an open discussion, and get a schedule, and negotiate it with the associations. The changes don't need to happen tomorrow, but we need to start them now. Julku's announcement, announced today, is a good example of self-initiative. And we also hope that the other associations who discriminate people based on their gender would do the same. So good speeches. If you have any comments. And quick comments, you can give them now. Apparently not. So, let's move on to the votes. These are preliminary votes. We're not deciding on future actions of the student union. These are just, we want to see what you think, that what direction we should take the preparations towards. I think someone had kind of something was unclear about this. Okay, I try to specify these options that you have, the alternatives. We have three options here. One is that we'll take this more broadly into account, or other aspects of equality when updating the regulations. And the red option is that we only focus on genders. And the white option is that AYYE should not make the social regulations stricter. And the difference between these is that we don't yet know how we could change the association regulation, because these are not so clear-cut and simple, these issues. It's easier to do. So if we want to go the broader direction, it would take more time from the office. But this is just my gut feeling, because we had really had the discussion that how to actually enact this change. The comment doesn't affect on this night, but for the future, I'd just like to see that the most opposite opinions would be red and blue, because now we can't the intermediate option is red. I should see that white would be like kind of like a middle road from the alternatives. There's a comment. I don't know if I understood this. I say that we should take these colors into account if they direct someone's voting behavior. But let's move forward. I don't think there is an intermediary option here, so that's why I didn't put that there. We're going to change the slips that there are no red ones. But yes, let's vote. No other questions? These are bigger things that we have to do. And this change may be a problem in the future. So this should prevent these future articles in newspapers. Not that everyone understands that everyone should vote blue. I want to make this sure. Yes, the short speeches after the vote and the group speeches should have taken these things into account and not hijack the discussion afterwards. Yes, what? So yes, the blue slips up now. Yes, only blue slips. Red slips. And the white slips. I can count them from the photos. And second vote. There was a difference between the blue and white slips in the result, so the white one would be very clear. This question wouldn't have mattered, but it wasn't. So it's with what kind of how intensely should AYYE should work on the change to the regulation. And the options are that blue one is as fast as possible. It's kind of a top priority, which means by autumn. Red is that during this year. That would be merged with the structures of the community project. And the white slip means that we'll work on it, but within the year. Yes, probably should be specified that in many speeches, many groups said talk about the transition period for these measures. This is not about that. This is just about the updating the regulation. And then we will have the transition period after that. So I thought it was good to point out. As an example, in our associate regulation, we made a change to the interpretation in 2014, where we noticed that for many associations, when they're dissolved, their regulations do not state that the money would be transferred to the community. It states now that in the associate regulation, and what the community means, the interpretation is very broad, but then the transition period was 1 year. So that's one thing that you can use as a reflection. As a specification, what is different a year's period and within the year. It means that this will be involved in this update on the structures of the community. It's hard to tell. There are 3 options here now, so it's the other like 6 months and the other one is the year. But what's the difference between red and blue then? The blue is like autumn and red is at the end of the year. So as fast as possible is that we can do it for the May's council meeting, but we can do it for the September's. And within the year it means that there are a lot of meetings coming up. And white means that will really take much pressure on what meeting we will have it finished by. It will happen at some point. There's also a discussion also with the merging the regulations, so it's kind of unnecessary this discussion, because there will be the transition period in any case. I think there's a clear point where we see that where we should do this. Do you really to vote on this? Someone really wants it for September, but I think at least based on the speeches, no one wants it. I don't see any harm done if we do the vote anyway. So blue slips up now. The red slips. And the white slips. Good, thank you. You still have a chance to give your comments to the office to support our work. Yeah, so really good speeches, everyone. Thank you to the groups. Also to say to the board when they start thinking about this, especially when talk about equality, that how different operators can be. For example, we mentioned the women of Aalto. And we talked about that with our own group a lot, because currently you really can't be like fully into the operations if you're a man. But its objective of the association to improve the position of women, and these are really complex issues and should look at it from many different perspectives. So if the student union starts taking a strong stand, saying that, for example, this association, that the discrimination is allowed, then someone may justify their different kind of actions based on that. Just to answer shortly that I'd suggest you to look up the term of positive discrimination, positive inequality treatment, and there are also operating models laid down in the law for this. I have nothing against women of Aalto, they do very good work, but when we talk about this positive unequal treatment, positive discrimination, it's also negative treatment for someone else. So there were very good statement made today from association working within AYYE, but we talk that this is not discriminatory against women, but this is positive treatment of men. So I should be very careful with this, because someone may easily turn these means around. Yes, I still suggest you to read the text related to this issue and term. Yes, I got discrimination, so not special treatment. Yes, it's nice terms. Let down the law. The thing I have to point out is this kind of a general mentality, kind of this forcing people to change as fast as possible. I agree that change is good, but for example for this AYYYE, it's kind of a public moralization and forcing that everything has to happen now. And also evident in these speeches that clear majority think that we should have kind of reasonable period of time and not like for the next meeting. Everything in really is the rhetorics, how it's brought up. Because for example with discrimination, especially with racism, we have different notions on what racism is. Just here be brought up like in a soft way rhetorically, because I kind of sense this kind of fear when voicing your opinion, because people are afraid that what if it's my opinion and then I end up in the news. That's not the point. One more thing about today's case is that think for a moment that who does this association actually discriminate? Because when people are invited as members, it's 100% discriminatory against women, but also 99% against men. So when you look at it, in actuality, it's kind of brutal. We improve the world of kind of 20 people. Of course, it's against our values, but because the people who are members of the association, is that they're not discriminated, and it is against some people's values. That's how big a case this is, but it is reality that the people who would be members otherwise, that it's discriminatory against them, because not everyone has right to be a member. And yes, I like there's women of Aalto, women of business. I will write about it more online. So yes, I disagree very much that people have forced and rushed this, try to moralize people. Because I think 3 years ago when it was brought up, I didn't have the courage to talk about anything about this because I felt I was really alone on this. Or for example, that the reaction that Lotta Arka received when she wrote about these things, it was very harsh. I understand people have been very afraid because of this subject. And instead of moralizing and forcing people, we're not done that. We brought up this important topic into the discussion, and the general atmosphere has changed. And people who hadn't had the courage to speak before now have. And I know that we're blaming for this kind of rushing things. Well, one person. Yes, one group's rhetorics. Because the general atmosphere has been that people were taking our time. We understand that we don't want to do this now because we've talked about this for tens of years, and now we want things to progress. I think that for a general discussion, we can show people that they're not alone with their issues. There are people who share these worries. Hello, Petteri Hellistä from Skismo. Let's start from this public discussion. I must feel that it's important that this discussion was opened. And although rhetorics, some people have thought that it kind of went overboard. I think discussion is something we need to do. I don't know it myself. Is that the thoughts are not transferred automatically from other people's heads to one another, and sometimes people have to be alone with their thoughts. They have to think that is it good for a community, is it okay? And for example, how you feel yourself, that you're a woman and you become part of this community and you see that the doors to some very prestigious positions are closed to them. And if you don't have this discussion, and then people may become over-emotional when it's against their own values. But I feel that this community is usually one where we appreciate direct speech, and that we really talk about issues, that we say things how they are. And I feel that also with difficult issues we need to do that. Thank you. Marat from Skismo. Talking about this public discussion and the attitude of the community, I'd like to quickly tell a story from yesterday, which really shows that what we can do, what good things we can do when we talk about these issues. Yesterday, we were at the Sitsit for academic affairs, and there we ate and drank with the staff and students and student representatives. And we started singing Pikku Kakkosen Possi. It's kind of been about a homophobic slur in this song, and everyone was silent. No one sang that part. And I think that was really cool. I don't think it's kind of very offending, but it is necessary that you can think about that. Thank you. There's no other request for floor. How to see? I can see what's the vote of the result. Couldn't we vote this now? Count this now? I got them and then we'll tell them. So we have a break for the calculation, but it's very clear, I think. For me there were more blue slips, and then the next one there were more red slips. It's very clear while looking here from the front. So I have to hear the final result. It's more about these other emerging matters. So someone to give me a beer, then I can say that what positive discrimination is and how Aalto business's action is different from Julkku. So if you buy me a beer, I can teach you on these matters. I think that the discussion is nearing its end. I'd like to thank everyone, especially the groups, for preparing your very good speeches, and we'll use this kind of methods also in the future. So I think that this brought give a much better basis for the discussion, that every group held their speech before, and then we have the open floor at the end, and we will probably use this. We will use this in the future. Do you think it's good? Yes. Good. If no other issues, no other discussion, then moving on to making the decision. The European Council decided to place on record the preliminary discussion on the subject. Closing item 12, moving on to 13, preliminary discussion on the regulation regarding AYYE's operations, the General Assembly of SYL. Petteri will have a quick introduction of what SYL is, so understand what we're talking about, because the General Assembly may be kind of abstract concept for many, so we see that what General Assembly it is.
Very nice. So, start with a short introduction. Start on what SYL is, what we do in practice, and what is going on in national politics and our job. Hello, I'm Petteri Heliste, AYY's SYL godfather, studying technical physics, bachelor in 2016, doing my master's now. At SYL I'm in charge of European Union advocacy and cooperation with other European student unions. It's my Twitter handle and my email address. In short, if our social media, that's our hashtag. You can use our hashtag as well. If you don't know what student activities you are done, you should use our hashtag. Then we have our Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, which you should also follow, or both official and unofficial news. Our focus is, of course, in national and international advocacy of all university students and higher education. Well, we're kind of an advocacy umbrella organization for national unions of students in Europe. And we work together with ESU, which is an EU advocacy entity. Some basics, we only have 15 members, so that we don't actually have student union members are not SYL members, but actually student unions are. We also have Snellman University, which is not an official university. We have the student society. We have about 132,000 students that we represent. We're established in 21, when the function was mainly kind of international cooperation with the Baltics and Europe, but now also advocacy. I'll talk about SYL. We of course mean the member unions and the office as well, both entities are covered. Here, shortly on our organization, our highest deciding organ is the General Assembly, held once a year, usually. And the delegates are decided by the student unions. They choose a board, decides on the action plan, decides on the budget, decides on the policy paper, on what SYL thinks of things. We have 7 members of board, so 1 chairperson and 6 people. We're in Helsinki, in Lapinrinne. We know where the 102 bus used to go from Kamppi, the first stop. We kind of have our office there. Here is our current board from last December. We have about 1 million in budget. It's about 70% of that comes from membership fees. From student unions, our membership fee is 5.6 euros per student, so AYYE it's about 80,000. What's your biggest expense? Staff expenses and administrative costs in office. We have 7.5 staff members. We have 1 half Okay. We get 300,000 in government grants from the Ministry of Education. I think the biggest one, only one who's bigger than us, is the Scouts of Finland, who get a ton of money, and then we have some political youth organizations that gain as much funding. And we also have some money from investments. Any quick questions at this point? Continuing. So, what do we do? Our main task is advocacy and lobbying. We meet with ministers, assistants of ministers, public officials, different stakeholder groups, such as labor union organizations that do labor politics, be they on the staff or on the manager side. Another big thing is affecting discussions. What is being discussed in politics? How do students show themselves in Finnish politics, and how are they visible? And our advocacy is guided by our policy paper, which is the ground of our values, our ideal situation, our goals and guidelines. For example, moving to general housing allowance, or some of the increases that happened last year. And our base values include a passionate advocate for education. We are a brave pioneer, a promoter of wide-ranging internationality, and a defender of equality. How we put the policy paper in action? Mainly our political realities are set by the General Assembly and the policy paper. We also have the government program, basically what is their government program for the current sitting government. Example, if we are discussing about increasing employment, for example. Then we have the political outlook and the realism. How does the national economy look like? And what stages and positions do we have in the opposition? And what's happening in the EU and outside of Finland? What has the Commission decided? The European Commission has decided on training, education. What in the EU budget is being earmarked for Erasmus, etc. Then, of course, we have the second task, which is advocacy related, but others, it says, of course, services and support for our members, the student unions, student union boards, staff, the people who do the hands-on work. Kind of tips on what's happening, what do we need assistance for, and where do we need your knowledge and contacts. Of course, support in like member services, networking, getting to know people, finding contacts to find the best means of operation. We have different kinds of student unions, and they have different means of operation and different traditions and different new ideas that can be implemented. Any questions on this stage? All right. Then on the current affairs, which is going on this year, here is our action plan for this year. We have 4 projects in regards to our ongoing activities. First one, we have generational policy as a topic of discussion in the elections and the parliamentary elections. For a long time we've created this sort of concept called generational policy together with AYYYE and other youth organizations on basically on does Finnish society work so that it supports young people enough, that young people have the required grounds to train, to take part in society and participate. And we're looking at, for example, wage development, to get the same kind of wages as their parents, gain a good retirement package, etc., etc. The aim would, of course, be to through this project to get ready for the parliamentary elections and have this same theme out and about there. Second one, we have the Students as Builders of Europe. The aim of this project is to increase the knowledge of students regarding Europe. For example, the Euro parliamentary election is very, very low in terms of voting activity. Well, it's in all the basic elections on young people vote less, but EU is a bit of a kind of a vague, big concept. Even though some experts said that 70% of our national legislation comes on some level from the EU. So it's a big agenda setting and a big region. You can see in your associations that GDPR is coming and it will affect your lives. And all this comes from the EU. We also have the future work. So preparing the work sector and the labor sector, what to do when you actually graduate, and then as an expert in student advocacy. And in short, we have kind of the higher education vision. A big thing is the FSHS. Sees how the social health reform will turn out, but it looks like FSHS will be going through and will stay with the students. Will the social health reform go through? I do not know. But Arkimo is only one person who's left today, but the majority is getting thinner, but it's still there. Say that our FSHS package might still go through, even though the unless the government goes down. But yeah. But yes. And also the preparation for the parliamentary elections. We have 3 members of party general assemblies coming up in the summer, and we'll have in a few weeks first draft of some paper. We might have the municipal larger section elections. And then we have the preparatory work for trainings, etc. Thank you. You can ask any questions from me after this, so you can send me emails or messages on Twitter or whatnot. Thank you. I have a lot of the slides. So, while we're discussing this, we should go through. The issue is that in several years when AYYE has started preparatory works for the General Assembly and opened the applications process for the delegation, we have had this question that it would be nice that this delegation would be chosen in a different manner. Then we've had the discussion, and then we haven't really gone at the result. And we've continued. The big reason has been that we've also been a bit late in the discussion. Now we are trying to be a bit early in comparison. So we have a regulation made in 2012, which has not been changed. We have the SUL background about the SUL General Assembly that this has to do with, a few words. It's kind of a SUL edari, but it's only once a year. And SUL represents about 132,000 students. And then when the votes are tallied from 1,000 downwards, we have about 142 votes, because these don't really tally. And preliminarily we have 13 votes. So 13 plus 13 vice members. Not all student unions do this. They only send their members proper. We also send our stand-ins. We have 13,900 members. It's graduation. The later you graduate, the more people will get to the General Assembly. It's from starting thousands. It's not from each full 1,000 you'll get a seat. But that's what we have. We have 13. This is irrelevant for our discussion. Please. So what's being decided, especially SUL's policy and shows policy paper that you will be forming for AYYE this year. And these updates can be done there. Also have an action plan that you'll be having. We'll have a finance, and of course we will be deciding on the board. GA. AYYE will start preparatory works for the General Assembly in August, September. No other student union is really doing this, but at that stage, September, we'll be choosing our delegates to prepare them for the work. And we'll do the work in about 5 meetings with delegates. The activities and actions in the General Assembly, the policy papers, AYY's policies, AYY's views and points of view for the General Assembly. The General Assembly lasts 2 years and is usually in November. And then we have the AYYE regulation. Even though we'll have the exceptional thing here is that I think that no other student union has regulations on how to carry ourselves out in the General Assembly. Usually it's decided by the board or the representative council, or they have no regulations. So, what's the point of the delegation? What's the purpose? The aim is to represent the student union in its entirety and their views in the best possible manner, and by conducting themselves with the highest forms of advocacy known to them. To us, it knows that the board names the delegation after hearing from the groups. Has it happened? And we have an open call for applications. We send the documents to the groups, and the groups will tell who they want. And after we've heard from that, the board will take note of the speeches, and we have a 5+5 mandate seats for the delegation. The idea was that we can actually get AYY's board there. This is usually panned out so that the board has taken the 5+5, not even all of those, sometimes less, and then the groups, we've heard from the groups' positions and made the decision. Then we also have from the policies. So, like actually we have a policy on voting. An important point here is that AYY's delegation works in a unified manner. It's that what AYY's delegation decides, that's the policy that we've actually think you go with. We have an exception for it. If you have a delegate who's saying beforehand that this is not okay for me, it's possible to differ from the delegation's point of view. And so how is the delegation's policy carried out is that we have people inside the delegation chosen there to do the policies. We're talking about people doing the policies, and we make these the votings, and these policymakers will show AYY's view based on our own discussions, and based on that we'll all vote. What does this mean in practice is that AYYE usually is very unified, and in issues that have been very important for us we have been able to exact change. In personal choices, and the syllabus choices are decided by the election of persons. But what can the delegation do? We can always choose a negotiator, which has always happened. We'll take a negotiator, and the negotiator goes to negotiate with other negotiators. And the situation is not actually that relevant for the discussion today. So if you have any points of view on this, we can discuss it more. But the negotiator acts on the instructions of the delegation. In addition, the regulation says that before the delegation leaves for the General Assembly, you will have a preliminary discussion with the Representative Council regarding the views and goals on what to develop and advance at the General Assembly. Usually the Representative Council doesn't have that much views that have been presented in the meetings, but they've been presented well in the workings of the delegation itself at the General Assembly. So, about the current model, I think it's pretty awesome that we have a regulation that defines how the delegation acts. I've seen in General Assemblies that we actually have different kinds of quarrels with different students because they don't have a ready set of rules in how to act. It can cause ill feelings, so that the delegation has acted in a way, or that they kind of these individuals detach themselves from the delegation and act in a completely solitary manner. So it actually affects the effectiveness of the delegation. AYYE, in my opinion, has always been very effective. And from a student union's point of view, we've had these goals that we want to reach, and we've also almost always succeeded in our goals. What is good to notice is that this discussion stems from is that how democracy is being carried out. And here we have the former of the board who forms the board. That's one representative democracy cornerstone or situation or cornerstone, after which the board represents the student union in the General Assembly. That's something of representative democracy, one of the steps. There are several steps in place here. So what does that mean in practice is that these board members are doing a year's worth of job and tasks that to be as effective as possible in the General Assembly, especially to take note of the point of view what the Representative Council wants the delegacy and the board to represent. Also have people that have AYYE has sent some staff members there from time to time. Also discussed that these staff members are not necessarily members of Aalto. Can they actually forward the Aalto ways of thinking and our goals? I'd say to this point is that somehow my personal, this is a personal opinion, but I trust on a national level our elected officials more than politicians. And then people are paid to represent your views and implement them, then I can see personally that it's more broadly taken into account. They're never voting there, they're only as stand-in members or substitute members. But could they just be sent as only as observers? That's a bit challenging because they can't take part in all the work that's being done at the General Assembly. So this was a request, and it wasn't originally in the slides, and that was in the group chairperson meeting that was asked. We tried to with Norri to find out what are other student unions doing. There are some observations. Sorry for the abbreviations. TAMU is for Tampere University Student Union. Then we have Turku University Student Unions, Lappeenranta University Student Union, Tajuva is an arts student union from Helsinki, and who is the Helsinki University Student Union. Most don't have any regulations. Most have some sort of policies on the representative council deciding. Some say that the board presents a template or proposal. Some like who has not sort of regulation on anything, but they have kind of a traditional call for application that goes out, and based on the representative council number of allocated positions in the Rep Council, they decide their delegates. So this, I had kind of my idea that we don't have to go this one by one. You can actually discuss the issues that are interesting to you, but general request for the floor regarding the issue. First was Petteri, then Peppi, and Koto. I consider myself, and I'll excuse myself for this item. But yes, to start with, for a preliminary discussion, nobody is ever excused for this. Well played for Petteri. But I still that this is still something that considers discussions that pertain to me. Can you dot down time? That we have a prepared suggestion on how this choosing should be made. that this current model is pretty heavy, uses a lot of resources for the board and the Representative Council. So the Representative Council is a decision-making organ with the highest decision-making power. That it would be that the Representative Council should decide straightforwards to actually decide who goes, because it uses lots of the board's resources. We, of course, will probably choose a delegation which includes most of the board members, but we should be able to set our own proposed members, but we can negotiate this for the best delegation possible. The possibility to choose a delegation should be made and could be made in a most democratic manner, so we would actually change and make it like on the Helsinki University style, make it that we'll make these delegations and these proposed slots based on members in the Representative Council, and then the board could make its counter-proposal, but the final power of decision would be with the Representative Council. But currently the groups and the office are actually not discussing, and that the groups could propose for members of the board, which might not be the people the board wanted to propose in the first place. So it kind of muddles the waters and muddies the waters in what could be the best delegation. So we hope in practice that we would have more discussion and we would, as a total whole group, choose the delegation. And I have a point here, especially from the point of view that we have lots of people. Well, we have the human mind, so that we need some sort of actual benefit for representation. You are representing, so you should represent the benefits of your groups. I can't see the situation happening where if we have people in the board who don't represent any of your groups, that these groups would prioritize a certain party or board member. That could be the, for example, educational policy representative. And then we would have discuss in a situation like, okay, we have these really great people, but what if we, like Kultarengas, could you put this guy there without a group? Would it be nice? So, and then Kultarengas could say like, okay, we have lots of our own good agendas and we want to put our guys and gals up front. And of course, it could be possible that it would work, but this system ensures that our student unions' best interests are represented at the General Assembly. And Kata. Thank you, Helene from Kultarengas. We think that the board would propose 5+5, and these could include expert and specialist positions, and the rest would be based on numbers of members in the Representative Council. I was in Sweden last year, and I was a policy maker. A specialist being in a work group was very important in order for us to actually get our propositions and proposals through in the big hall, followed by Jyri, and then pass the mic.
I agree with Kata. And also continue that all members of the board, that's extremely important in the General Assembly, whereas there are some very proficient people in the Representative Council groups, so we also get expert there. And another thing, that is observers. That's a kind of clear policy with SYL. No. That was it. Thank you. Suhtinen from Chem. I think that that's a great channel. In his presentation, very good points on why this type to elect the delegates is good, and we should stick to it. Yes, a very good opening discussion from Kilterengas that not all members of the board this is kind of a job that's relevant for the General Assembly, because, for example, the volunteer work is not handled in SYL, it's our thing. So it's not very useful to take the volunteer person there, for example. There's sometimes been justified by the fact that members of the board know people from different student unions, but so do our representing council members. So this can be the only merit that we choose. Choose the people. And there are a lot of proficient people in the board, and we think that because not even everyone has applied to the delegation from all groups, and sometimes there will be less applicants than they have seats. So I don't think that this trend is going to change. And there will be these seats that will not be filled. I think there will be some people who would want to give their positions to the board or the employees. And these 5+5 seats, they were problematic, because it forces us to send our entire board, and we don't really question that, do we need to send all members of the board there? Secondly, in our current system, we feel that the biggest problem is that the board may decide on the seats differently than what the groups have stated. For example, last year, our statement was not adhered to, because the board saw that it was more important to have all the different schools represented, which was kind of unfair, because we were the only group with persons from this discipline. So each group should at least get to define their own places, own seats, and not that the board defines at will. And Chairperson also hinted that there were also some other reasons why the selections were made as they were last year. So this is the minimum that we should do. But because the board is not likely to be, cannot deem themselves that who are the important person to send, that it would be good that if the representing council would kind of interview the board and see who are the relevant, the representing council would have all the power to decide on this matter. So really chart this expertise better. Yes, that case. The board really thought about the matter, and from my point of view, we adhere to the regulation that we have. The delegation's task is to represent all our disciplines, and we try to adhere to that. And the delegation in this case was nominated. The people appointed to the delegation, the regular and deputy member, they were nominated differently. But, for example, the group, they could have been acted in the General Assembly as they would have liked. If they would be very operating model that wanted to enact, what we wanted to do is that we had at least one arts student as a regular member of delegation. If we're the only who have these art students, it's kind of a pity that. Yes, I will hand out these intermediate comments. To specify that what the board does, so around 50% of our common board work, so we also do advocacy work, so we didn't do just our own sector's work. We do also do other things. I'll specify that. Santeri? There's a lot of faith in the board that we have elected to represent us for this year. And the board talks a lot about these issues during the year. And from an old member of the board, former member of the board, please take this with a grain of salt. But we also have a lot of representing council members who are very capable of acting as delegates. Very talented people who we want to send there. But I'd say that the board is the group of people that can the best form the kind of big picture for the delegation. And these are the people that we have elected for the year to represent our student union in all aspects and to network with other student unions. So why we should kind of eliminate this. The board can make their suggestion, the proposal in some other way if needed. If they feel that some member of the board doesn't have that much to give to the discussion at the General Assembly, but since we've given them the mandate for the year, I think it's kind of a stupid place here to take the mandate away at the expense of the influencing capabilities of our student union. Yes, I agree. The board is very important, and if we had this kind of individual representing council members there, say if I was in the board in 2015, I wouldn't know anyone from the other student unions. So the board is a very important resource. And we'll look at the social side, but on the other hand, if we want these people for the social networks, if we want to expand them, then they can be the observers there, because then they don't have to take part in the working groups. They can just be there mingling, kind of talk with people. But the member of the board feels that their issues from their sector is not handled, for example 2015, in our action plan. We had this kind of a shared studentship, some kind of a shit like that. I hate that project. It was going to be, because my sector wasn't there. So divisions can be made there. So, and the responsibility of the board in this model. Can I get the previous slide, which says that how it goes? Yes, this one. That what we propose is that these two last items there, that this second to last would be there, that the board appoints the 5 general representatives with 5 deputies, but the representing council would not state, but that they would decide. Of course, this increases the need for discussion about the delegation between the representing council groups and the board. If the board thinks that in their quota we need to have employees there, or if a representative council group would like their members there. That was all, thank you. I like to support the current practice that we have, because it guarantees this kind of a good representation, and it also guarantees that we have people who actually focus on it with their work resources. And as it states in the regulation, which you can see, is that the board has an open application to the delegation, which happens pretty transparently. So if a person really has something to give to the delegation, they have had the chance to apply for it. If they say that they're interested, yes. I think we all agree that it's important the expertise of the board. It's a different thing that it should be in the regulation, or by the responsibility of the council, but let's not talk about that, because when the Kulttuurirengas said that we talked about is that why all the seats from the council are taken outside from the 5+5 model, that's why this board, like the intermediary there, because it's also a very heavy process. Because there are applications, the board does draft proposal, then the council comments on it, make the decision from the board. It's a very heavy process. However, I think that if the council would go forth and state their opinions, and then the board usually don't have anything to change, except for, well, last year they changed one thing, but it could be made quicker, this process, also make it more democratic, even though if board would have their 5+5 seats, we could streamline it, make it more democratic, make it more direct and better, And it also give more faith, more responsibility to the representation council groups, because I think it's weird for the groups that we can't trust that they'd give good input. And that's why I agree with the Kulttuurirengas proposal. And the last request for floor during this speech. So I try to keep this short. We'll go from Kulttuurirengas. So why we should change the regulation is that there are no big problems in it with it, but I think it'd be more representative democracy would promote that if it would say that representation council decides on who of the representation council attends the delegation. And as well as I said that, for example, there may be some board members who don't need to be included in the delegation can be brought there as observers, in which case we could also have experts there as needed. It can be done also with the current regulation, but why shouldn't we change it if we through that can promote representative democracy and also get the best possible representation for the student union to the delegation. And if Jyri Topi is the last speaker. Tässä I'd like to bring forward a proposal that it's very unfortunate that from Vihreämpi Aalto what happened, that they lost some of their seats. So it's good that when we start discussing this regulation in such an early phase, so the board has more time to look into who should be taken as part of the delegation. Regardless of what we decide now, if there's a risk that some representative council groups, person who they suggested, that the person will proposed by the board will replace them, then we would have enough time to discuss the composition of the delegation, so we can remedy the situation if it is needed. Yes, Vihreämpi didn't lose any seats. It was changed. Who was the regular member and who was deputy member. Okay. Good speeches. We have elected board, we have put our faith in them, we have given them the authority to represent us. But I remind you that it's also in the interest of our council groups to elect the best possible people. So we wouldn't want to choose bad candidates for the delegation. So this compromise suggested by Kulttuurirengas would be good. No other request for floor. Let's move forward. A couple of preliminary discussions here. The votes. Though we received a lot of input before this, but these are the blue is yes, we should reform the General Assembly regulation, update it. And red means no, we won't do it, we will go with the current one, and white is that cannot say. So blue slips up now. As red slips. And white slips. Okay, good, thank you. Lots of comments to this, but let's go through with this. Other student unions really don't have the regulation. And one option would be that it would only be included in the regulation, that we wouldn't have a separate regulation for the General Assembly. But let's just make sure. Blue would be that we would remove the General Assembly regulation. And we will have it in our regulations. Now we have the regulation for the General Assembly that specifies how the people are selected, what we are going to do there. It's the current state on the right. Then this one would be what other student unions do, that they don't have the General Assembly regulation, they just have the student union regulation that says that, for example, the board or representing council elects the delegation, or they don't say anything, which is kind of ambiguous, depends on what people want to do. So our proposal would be the current state, but we want to change it, the regulation. So only in the regulation of student union, that's blue slip. Yes, thank you. And the current state, red slip. The additional General Assembly regulation. Yes, thank you, it was very clear. We're in challenging times, because we'll have a representing council meeting in May, and the next is on September after that. So it would be cool if we could elect a delegation before that meeting. So means that we have the options. The blue slip means that it's discussion, and based on that, this board will give their own proposal for the May representing council meeting. Red slip means that we would have what you've discussed, prepare it, discuss it with the committees, and bring it to representing council on the 20th of September. And the white slip means that maybe in May, if we make it, but most likely at the September meeting we'll have a preliminary discussion with the representing council, and they will decide on the issue in October. So the white option, it would mean that we would not take this update the regulations to account this year. With red, it would mean that could possibly take into account, but it would mean that we can start selecting the delegation only after the September meeting, and the blue option would mean that we trust that all the necessary issues were brought up in this discussion, and then we can bring this up in May, a proposal for this. So, blue slips up now. Red slips. And then the white slips. Great, thank you. Someone want to say something? Yay. Yes, what about the votes? In all the votes. Here, I can say that. Well, this vote, yes, we will start reforming it. This means that we will stick with the current state. And this means that the blue, that we will bring the proposal to you in May. What about the social regulations? Yes, I have them here. Just counted from the photos, and these are not kind of like official things that define our operations. But first, when we voted on, what was the actual question? Should we make a change to the social regulation? 23% said that we should change it, start making the change. Yes, the blue option, 23 votes, red 1, white 13. And this next, blue 1, red 28, white 7. If no other request floor. Oh, someone has something to say. So one thing that I would hope for, someone voted that we for the next Representative Council meeting, this proposal, that we get it in writing in time, and all Representative Council groups would make their suggestions in writing beforehand, so that we go vote yes or no and not have the discussion here. Yes, great speech. Thank you. Yes, and we'll move on to the other emerging matters. Closing discussion, making the decision. Representative Council decided to place on record the preliminary discussion on the subject. Closing item 13, moving to item 14, other emerging business. 12 days until Vappu. Yes, I support this. Second for exercise. How many of you have made the deal with Julkku? Excellent. Have this number much bigger when we have our event through sparkling wine. Thank you for a very good discussion for these both topics. It's very nice to work with you. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Yes, if no other emerging matters, closing item 14, moving to item 15, closing of the meeting. It's 20:37, closing the meeting.
Ei se 9:00kaan.
Ei mennytkään. Hei, tässä lähti jostain kaljaa kaupassa. Voi velje, harvinainen tilanne. Mä oon saanut lukea mun translation-teoriakirjaa pidemmällä. Directional equivalence.